Hi, my name's Regina Morgan, and this is my story of how I survived child abuse and neglect. So I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota. I was born in a part of the city that was pretty poverty stricken. On top of everything else, there was a and addiction on my parents' part. So my mom and dad were addicts, and my mother would prostitute herself, and then my father would prostitute us, or he would sell us for. As I got older, I asked my sister, because I knew that there was sexual abuse, and I asked her, did anything ever happen to me? Because my whole life I was told that nothing did. And so she said, yeah. She told me that men would just come in and out. Often it was like one after the other sometimes, and what they would do was put like a bunch of blankets on the floor with pillows. They say, we're gonna have a sleepover with my friends. That's what my father would say. And so they would all lay on the floor, and that's how they would abuse us. And they would give my father either money as payment. My sister she's 6 years older than me, or about 5.5 years older than me. And my brothers, who are twins, are 2.5 years older than me. And my sister would take care of us as much as she could. She told me when I got older that she would change my diaper. She would make me bottles of milk. She would feed us. When there wasn't food in the house, she would walk to the corner store and steal like ramen noodles and things like that. And one day, the owner of the store caught her, and he told her if she ever needed anything, not to steal it, just to ask, and he would give it to her. We didn't have much, and my sister had never gone to school. She could barely speak. She didn't know how to read. There was a lot of different things that she didn't know. So the day that we were taken away, it was about a month after my first birthday. I was 13 months. My brothers were 3 and my sister was 6. From what I've heard from multiple different individuals in my family, it was that my father got into a fight with one of his friends, and someone either broke their nose or their nose was bleeding, and it was all over the place. So my sister got really scared, and she ran into the street and started yelling for someone to call the police. And so the police came, and they walked into the house, and it was a garbage house. There was garbage all over the floor, animal feces that smelled like urine. It was cold but warm at the same time. Barely any furniture, barely any indication that children lived there. When they found me, I was in a pack and play with curdled bottles of milk all around me. I had diaper rash down my thighs. So they took us out. They found my mom in one of the rooms completely out. They took her in. They took my father into custody. They took both of them into custody. They put us into the back of the police car. And as we're sitting there, my sister's looking around, and she's like, where's my brother? And they couldn't understand what she was saying because she didn't know how to vocalize. And so they went back inside, and they were looking for my other brother, and he was stuffed inside of a closet, completely unconscious. And so what happened was that he was 3, and my father's pacing back and forth, panicking, hearing the police sirens coming, and he's crying. My brother's crying. Kept telling him to shut up, and he wouldn't shut up. So to get him to shut up, he grabbed a 2x4 and knocked him over the head with it, knocked my brother out, 3 years old, and just left him there to die. And if it wasn't for my sister, he probably would have died. My father never faced any jail time, any punishment, nothing. He was told that he just had to give up the rights of his kids and he could walk away. I remember when I was about 2 or 3, I had a visitation with him. It was a supervised visitation, but I thought that was really weird that they would still let me visit him, even though all these things happened. Even though I don't remember anything, I was affected. I had quite a lot of issues growing up. After that, for me, I feel like I had a pretty okay life. I don't really have very many memories of being in the foster home. I do remember, I feel like I remember good things, a lot of good things. It was a very good foster home. My foster mom was amazing. So I lived in the foster home until I was 5 years old. My Nana, who was my foster mom, she was in the process of having her daughter adopt me. But because my mom went through therapy and parenting classes and treatment, she got priority of me. And at first, she wanted all of us, but they told her that my older siblings had way too much trauma and too many mental issues for her to take care of 4 kids as a single mother. And so she took me. And I always used to say when I was younger, she took me because I didn't remember anything. Even though, like I said before, it was there subconsciously. So I went back to live with my mom. I had just turned 5. At first, everything was great. I remember the Christmas, waking up, seeing all the gifts under the tree. And I remember a lot of good memories in those first few months. The neglect started kind of right away. I remember just walking home from school at 5 years old by myself. I think I had a key at first to our apartment, but I'm 5. Of course, I lose the key. And so instead of my mom getting me a key, she didn't. And so I would sit outside the apartment building by myself. And a lot of the times, my Nana would come get me, and my mom wouldn't call or wonder where I was for 2 or 3 days. My mom wasn't addicted to drugs anymore, but she was addicted to men. But of course, around January, she had met a guy. They got married when I had only been back with my mom for 7 months. I was about 6 when this was happening, and I remember not eating for days sometimes because they would be too busy to attend to me. And I remember having to take a bath by myself. Even though I didn't know what I was doing, I still had to do it. We lived in this little house for a little while, and while we were living there, her husband had his brothers living there as well. And so after a little while, we moved to another house, which as a child, I thought it was so far away, but it was only a couple blocks away. And it was closer to this busy street where it was worse. From here, the neglect just got worse. I always like to say I was born into abuse, I was taken out of that, and then I was put back into abuse because her husband was physically abusive. This abuse went on they were married for almost 7 years, and it went on for the whole 7 years, and it did get worse. It got worse. Not only abuse, it was like I wasn't taken care of. One time I was in the back room of the dollar store because I would be there a lot. And I'm a kid. I'm climbing up the boxes and pretending we're castles and doing all that and stuff. And I fell and I sprained my ankle. And nobody took me to the doctor to get it checked out. I remember limping. And instead of getting me crutches or anything like that, they gave me a broomstick to use as a crutch. When I first got lice, it was my fault. He would tell me that I was dirty, that I was hanging around dirty kids, that I was hanging around pigs. Why am I dirty? It's my fault. And he would punish me for that. This particular time, he picked me up and threw me across the room because it was my fault that I had lice. So having lice was super hard, and I it's I think this is one of the things that affects me because nobody knew. Um, I remember going into school on the first day of school, or when your teacher would switch your desks and say, "Oh, everybody's going to switch." And I remember thinking, please, please, God, please put me in the back. Please put me in the back, or put me on the edge so that I can turn this way so that the people behind me don't see the lice crawling in my hair. During the school day, I would go to the bathroom and I'd comb my hair out. I would not itch. It would itch, but I wouldn't itch it, especially in class, because I knew if I itched it, what if something fell onto the desk behind me? I just wouldn't touch it. I would let it itch. I would sit there and take it. I remember just being so tired all the time, sometimes falling asleep in class. I know that people notice things because some of the teachers would say, "You can go down to the nurse's office and sleep if you need to." But nobody ever reported anything. The next time I was sexually assaulted, it was when I was 11 and the kid was 15. He was my next door neighbor, and his little sister was a really good friend of mine. She was a little bit younger than me, but she was so innocent, and it's like sometimes I would just want to be with her because I loved that innocence and I loved being able to play and just be a child. I sat on his lap, and the whole time that I'm sitting there, he starts to get in a, and it's like moving, and it was so gross. I remember feeling so disgusting. But the second time it happened, I was at her house and I was playing in her room, and all of a sudden he comes home and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, please, like, I gotta leave." So I tried to leave and he said, "No, we should watch a movie in my room." I tried to sit on his bed towards the wall so that he couldn't touch me in any way. But of course, he still found a way to do it, and he started touching me over my shirt. I realized when I was 16 that I was like, my mom doesn't care about me. You know, she never has tried with me. I never felt comfortable around my mother. She never guided me in any way. So when I was 16, I was in class with a teacher, and she was a really close teacher of mine. I said, "I really wish I could see my brothers again." And so she typed in my foster mom's name on Google, because, you know, it was like up and coming at that point. And so right away she found the orphanage in Jamaica. And so she contacted them, and that's how we got back in touch. And my brothers weren't in Jamaica anymore at that point. They were really close to where I was. And so we got back in touch. And then because of that, I got in touch with my sister. My sister, I really didn't know her my whole life. My advice for, you know, anybody watching would be that abuse, that neglect, that trauma, it doesn't define who you are. You would be so surprised on how strong you are and how much willpower you have to be able to move forward and get better and get help and not repeat the cycle. Being a mom to me is everything. I would do anything for my kids. I've always told them that I'll always be there no matter what. Right now, I have a photography business, and I've had it for almost 8 years. I take pictures of kids and families. I love kids, though. I still struggle with things, obviously. I've had issues in my life, and I've had to overcome a lot of those issues on my own. I've been able to tell my story throughout my whole entire life. And I think that for me, it was a therapy. I always say, if you see something, say something. I know a lot of people, they don't like to get involved with these things, but the thing is that you could be the key to helping a child, a defenseless child who has no idea that there's help for them, that they can get out of their situation. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I know that it might be kind of uncomfortable to listen to, but I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to listen to it. I hope that it helps someone at least. And if you want, you can follow me on social media on my photography page. The links are down below.